listening to the GM Shuffle, presented by DraftKings and VSiN.
And welcome to the GM Shuffle, presented by VSiN and DraftKings Sportsbook. The crown is yours. Dave Ross alongside Geoff Schwartz as we make our way through the 4th of July weekend, which means, Geoff, we're another week closer to the start of the NFL season. How was the 4th for you back in Carolina? And what does it signify for a player once you do get past that 4th of July weekend? I know you're supposed to already be in shape. It's hard to stay in shape when you're eating a lot of hot dogs, as I'm sure a lot of NFL players were over the weekend.
Not as many as Joey Chestnut, though, who did go under, Dave. He did go under. Yes. Very un-American to go under your hot dog total on the 4th of July contest. Nonetheless, look, I think the 4th of July signifies for players, I know it did for me, that that was like the last day of whatever quote-unquote cheat meal you're going to have, right? It's the last day to drink a lot. I would imagine the last day to just eat a bunch of hot dogs, because for the most part, you have typically 2 weeks after 4th of July to train hard, right? And in this case, starting today on July 7th, you have this week and then maybe most of next week before you start tapering down, because, a few days before camp, you start tapering down, right? So, and for some players that are playing the Hall of Fame game, you're in camp in about 8 days from now.
Wow.
8-9 days from now. So I went to camp July 18th one time for a Hall of Fame game. July 4th was a week later than I had my normal sort of 2 week before training camp mindset. So this is what players think, right? Like if you vacationed at all, which I don't want to knock anyone's vacation time. Like I get it. It's important. I don't get the post spring vacation. Like this is the time you ramp up for training and getting ready for camp, going on a week vacation. A weekend maybe, but like a week. So if you've been on that vacation, now's like the time to get cracking, to get ready for training camp. Some of these choices by these players, again, I don't want to knock. That might not be your choice, maybe someone else in your life's choice, but get back from vacation, get ready to play football.
Well, we all know football is king of this country, and I'll tell you this from a TV side. We always told everybody in our sports departments through the years, you get your last vacation in before training camp. Not the start of the season, before training camp, because once training camp starts at the end of July, you're in football season until hopefully your team gets all the way to the Super Bowl. The Steelers made an interesting signing, I thought, and that's in the front office in Omar Khan. They've re-signed him now to a 3-year contract, which means he'll be there theoretically through the 2028 campaign in the Steel City. Geoff, you know this organization pretty well in that they don't like change, right? They don't like to change head coaches. They don't like to change the front office. And I think that's why it shows maybe year in, year out that they're normally a very successful, if not, winning Super Bowls like their glory days, but at least always having winning seasons. Is that part of it, that continuity from the front office extending to the coaching staff, which then extends to the players?
Well, it's hard to argue otherwise, especially when they've had the success now over generations, right? With just 3 coaches, essentially. It's the same sort of Steeler mindset, right? And that, look, the mindset, I've been in buildings where losing has happened, and you don't feel the same as when you're with the Giants. And I was there after they won Super Bowls, but the feeling in the building, when you walk in, you see the 4 Lombardi trophies, there's a feeling of winning, right? The things that we've done in the past have helped us win. Let's continue to do those things. Now, you still have to innovate and be adaptive and change and be able to change with the times. But when you go walk in that Pittsburgh Steeler building, you feel the winning. You understand what the winning means in Pittsburgh, and they have a winning formula. Now, the question becomes what I've said about Pittsburgh for so many weeks now and so many months is, okay, you have this culture. It's good, right? But Dave, they're in the worst spot, in my opinion, of all sports, which is the middle. They're firmly in the middle of the NFL. They're not winning a Super Bowl no matter how good things go this season. They're not bad enough to think about the future. So they're right in the middle. And your job as a general manager is to think about short-term and long-term. And very clearly, short-term, they have gone all in on this team right now. They're an older team. They've added veterans. We're going to win now. Now, the way they added the team, they could still pivot after the season to young at quarterback especially. But defensively, those guys are not getting any younger, right? And so it feels like they missed a little window right now to capitalize on the defense with a young rookie quarterback who's not making a lot of money. And I just got to see Pittsburgh after the season. I'll give them the benefit of the doubt right now, and I've hammered them all off. The Aaron Rodgers signing to me is nothing. Like, what's the goal of the signing? To just win 10 games again or 9 games again and be competitive and lose in the wild card round? How does that further your success in the next year? It doesn't, right? You're not getting any better You're getting right in the middle, which you don't want to be. So I got to see them this offseason go for the quarterback. They have to do it, Dave. You have to. Kenny Pickett doesn't count, in my opinion. He was the only quarterback in that draft in the first round. A terrible draft. Vic's next draft, at least right now, on paper, great quarterback draft. There's going to be tons of quarterbacks, even guys you and I even like. Cade Klubnik right now is like the mock number one quarterback. Okay, I don't know, sure, but there's plenty of quarterbacks. Nussmeier, right, as we know from LSU, Arch Manning if he wants to come out. They're all over the place. So Pittsburgh has got to be aggressive this offseason to get the quarterback, or the GM extension means nothing. You have to go and get that franchise quarterback.
Yeah, that's interesting to me that you bring in Aaron Rodgers on this 1-year deal, and yet the GM gets a 3-year extension. So is there any symmetry there, even if they move on from Rodgers? It'll be a very interesting year in Pittsburgh, especially if it doesn't work out. If it is a disaster this year with Aaron Rodgers, what does that look like? But again, proof's in the pudding. All they do is have winning seasons under Mike Tomlin. You mentioned the coaches, 3 coaches since 1969. Chuck Noll, Bill Cowher, Mike Tomlin. And they've all won Super Bowls, which is rather amazing. Since 1969, we're talking over a half century there. Amazing in Pittsburgh. In Dallas, some issues off the field. Kevontae Turpin, very talented kick returner, punt returner, and even they started to use him as a weapon offensive last year, whether it would be in the slot or try to take the top off the defense a little bit. He was arrested by police this past Saturday, marijuana charges and a gun charge, and he recently signed a 3-year contract there valued about $18 million. I don't know what the Cowboys are going to do. I know sometimes in the NFL, it's like, can you play? And you look the other way sometimes when guys can make plays. And we know he can. Geoff, what do you think it's not a good way to start any camp, let alone for a team that's always going to be scrutinized like the Cowboys. What do you think the Cowboys should do? And what do you say to the player when you get in a situation like this?
So what's the saying? When your talent outweighs your problems, you're fine. When your problems outweigh your talent, like it's time to go. Obviously, we know how important he is as a kick returner and his ability to make plays on the field. Look, I always have a tough time when it comes to like marijuana arrest. I mean, like, come on, we're still doing that, like arresting for marijuana. Look, they're in. This was in Texas. You got arrested, correct? So,
yeah.
I mean, weapons are commonplace in Texas. I would make sure that if you have one, it's registered and everything that you have to do to make sure it's legal. Like, it seems like these are simple steps, right? Like, and understanding like your state. The thing about different states where you play, they have different laws. So, for example, when I got to the Panthers, they told us, and it's true still now, that there's different laws for how you store a weapon in North Carolina and South Carolina in your car. So, like, one of the states, the weapon has to be in visible sight. The other one has to be hidden. So if you cross the border, which is very common here, you go to South Carolina all the time, 40 minutes away. If your weapon is not stored correctly, you can get in trouble. So it's up to the players to understand the law. I think no one's saying you can't own a weapon, but just know what the rules are for owning that weapon in the state you're in. I think everyone agrees, like marijuana, whatevs, like whatever, man. But just like have it in a place where if you get pulled over, we're not finding it. So I think it's those type of things I think that just be smart about, right? And you know, I don't think that people are that upset about having those things with you, but just make sure that you do it the way you have them the way you're supposed to. You know what I mean? I think it seems pretty simple. I don't think he was driving though, right? Where was he? Where'd they find? I'm trying to find like why was he?
Yeah,
I
don't know this situation as to why he was pulled over initially, but again, the bigger point, I think you made it really well, which is know what you're doing, because if you're in different states, different jurisdictions, could be different legal problems, right? You go back to Plaxico Burress and we saw,
New York,
New York, right? Like different state, different laws. So, as a Cowboy backer,
I hear 90. You see again, 97 and a 70.
That's why you get pulled over.
Like it's the same thing we talked about with Sanders, right? Like and I get it. Some of the cars go fast. Again, we're not saying you can't never speed, but again, I don't know what the laws are in Texas for storing a weapon. I don't know if it has to be on your purse. Again, like it's more just being a professional.
Yes.
Understanding all these things, right? No, I have weapons now that I didn't have them when I played. Like, it would be my job to understand if I'm driving how to store the weapon. Like, that's my job as a professional.
And don't go 100 miles an hour or near it, because you're asking to get pulled over, Cavante Turpin, and that's why you got pulled over. And then you get a marijuana charge, then you get a gun charge, and it becomes a bigger issue than it would be certainly if it was just speeding. That's going to be interesting to see the way the Cowboys handle this. And you just brought in George Pickens from Pittsburgh. Yep. We know about some of the on the field issues that George had there. And now all of a sudden that Cowboy stigma, if you will, man, what are we doing with some of these players on our roster? Can they, we know they're talented. Can they toe the line and do the job of a professional? That stuff comes into question now. So I hope all this is water under the bridge, Geoff, and it doesn't affect the Cowboys going forward, but not the way you want to start off camp, right? Do you do anything as players? Does Dak have to say something about two guys that would be under his wings as receivers? Or is this just something we go, hey, you guys are pros, we don't need to address this further, and it's already been addressed?
Probably nothing. You might send him a text or a call like, hey man, like, let's not, let's be smart about this. Again, I don't think anyone is judging him for the things that he's had on his body or the speeding. It's more like just be a professional and handle it the right way. And yeah, you don't want to start camp with it, but look, people was talking about this summer. You just hope this is when guys, they get in trouble, right? Is the summer months. There was a college football player broke his arm on an ATV, starting offensive lineman. Like, these are the times when you hope to not get those phone calls. So we're almost at training camp. The Cowboys, they go to Oxnard. How nice is that? You get to leave the heat of Texas to go to Oxnard, have a spa week in Oxnard, California for training camp. How nice.
We'll see if Cavante Turpin's with the team when they go out there to Oxnard. I'm sure there's something that's going to be addressed. Then you're going to get asked about it. That's the way it works here in the news cycle in sports, that's for sure. All right, when we come back, Geoff, I do want to start breaking down, we'll get into the Steelers a little bit more, Jonnu Smith, their new tight end, because we're going to break down the entire AFC North. And later on in the show, an interesting list of the top 10 running backs in the NFL. I want to get your thoughts on that as well. So come on back, just getting it started. It is the GM Shuffle.
You're listening to the GM Shuffle, presented by DraftKings and VSiN.
We continue the GM Shuffle, presented by DraftKings Sportsbook. Dave Ross and Geoff Schwartz here with you on this Monday. I'm going to break down the AFC North here going forward, Geoff, for the next two segments. And let's start off with the top two tiered teams. Now, that's up for debate when you look at this division. We'll get to the Browns in the next segment. I don't think they're very debatable. But I think the top three in this division you could make cases for. Now, in the odds market, it's the Baltimore Ravens. And we saw they got knocked out last year by the Buffalo Bills. We felt like they were very close again. But yet the Ravens have not been able to get over that hump in the Lamar Jackson era, for a guy that's won 2 MVPs and, dare I say, should have won a third last year. Of course, it goes to Josh Allen. But, Geoff, is this the year? And if so, why should the Ravens be viewed at least as the best team in the AFC North?
Look, all I know is when Lamar has started a full season, the Ravens typically are division winners, and Lamar is like the MVP. So it's, he started in 1920. They were second in 20. And then obviously 23 and 24, they've both been the division champions. I mean, he is so good with what he does. I know people worry about injuries, and those injuries he's had are not really in the pocket. They're just getting out in space, which happens. And he's going to do that with his arm and legs. But I don't know why this year is going to be much different than the previous years. I mean, I guess you would just say that you take enough swings. If you take enough swings, you eventually chop the tree down. But they just, the regular season, we know what they're going to do. They're going to win between 10 and 12 games, maybe 13. I have no doubt they're going to be a playoff team. They're going to contend for the division. All things we know about Baltimore, because we talked earlier about Pittsburgh, right? About like the steadiness. Harbaugh has a system that works, right? The steadiness of the Ravens. We're going to win the line of scrimmage, play defense, protect the ball offense. I know it's boring sometimes, but those work. Every year they work. So we know they're going to win games. So I think your question is a good one. What do they do to overcome it? and it's about playing better in the postseason as a whole, right? They tend to have a little more mistakes, not as sound on offense. Injuries have hurt on defense over the years, but they haven't won a playoff game that essentially they shouldn't. I mean, not they should. I mean, like they shouldn't in a while, right? Like they've lost to. I'm going to read that. They lost to the Chargers. Remember Lamar's first playoff. Then Tennessee upset them. And they lost to Buffalo 17-3, lost the Chiefs at home as a favorite, and then lost to Buffalo. So they lost last year. So, they haven't won a game they shouldn't yet. And that, I think, is the question, right? So how do you push through that? How do you get over that hump? I think you just take enough swings at the tree, right? Like there's nothing they're going to do differently. In the big moments, you can't turn the ball over. Right. Got to make plays on defense. And they haven't done that in those big games in the postseason. It's small samples. I get it. But that's how we judge Baltimore because they're good every year.
Yeah, well, I think you nailed it. The one going back 2 years ago now, when you lose the AFC title game, about 4.5-point favorites that day against the Chiefs at home, and the Chiefs come in there and beat you pretty good too. Remember the struggles that Lamar had through the air. And here's the thing: Todd Monken's coming back. They just gave him a new 2-year deal. The offense of the regular season looks like a juggernaut. Looks like it cannot be stopped. But Geoff, I get the feeling at least Steve Spagnuolo has done this. When they play the Ravens, and I'm sure it's kind of the blueprint, is they still dare Lamar Jackson to beat them with his arm, which he can do. We all know that.
Yeah.
In the postseason. And for whatever reason, that has not manifested itself yet. So is that still going to be the recipe until Lamar does it with his arm? People are going to drop people in coverage and say, well, we'll give you the underneath stuff. But we're going to spy you. We're not going to let you run. And if you beat us with your arm, so be it.
Yes, that's the way they're going to do it. And this is the point of Derrick Henry. Was this supposed to take that away? Like, we're just going to pound you into submission. And we're going to make sure that if you do say, okay, Lamar beat us, if you're going to play those two high safeties, we're going to run the ball at you. But teams are just saying, look, man, nope, I don't care. We're going to put 8-9 in the box and make Lamar do it. So, look, Henry has added dimension to this offense that really has changed what they do late in games. For a couple of years, they were bad at closing games. Not with Henry now. I mean, he's all his big rushes to end the game. And they close out games so much better now. But it's getting a situation in the postseason to make sure you're able to close out the games. And this, again, in those big moments, for whatever reason, they haven't done it. They haven't done it. And I know people like to say small sample size. I know I did earlier, but at some point it kind of is what you are. And something sometimes extraordinarily has to happen to change that. And maybe it's the Chiefs get knocked out early in the postseason. You get a worse team to play, or sort of put it all together finally. But it just doesn't look the same in the postseason.
It is bizarre that it has not translated yet. And then they're going to open up the season in Orchard Park against the Bills, where their season ended a year ago in the postseason. The team slated right now to be the second betting choice, at least in the division, is the Cincinnati Bengals. And I look at their re-signings, and they bring back guys like Samaje Perine, going to help out the run game a little bit. You re-sign Jamar Chase. You re-sign T. Higgins. You re-sign Mike Gesicki, who had a breakout year at tight end. But you haven't re-signed Trey Hendrickson yet. Now, I know you're bringing Al Golden now to help run that defense from Notre Dame, and we'll see what a difference a coordinator can make there. But it does feel like the same cast of characters, and I guess you hope that Trey gets this thing worked out before you get to training camp, or at least the start of the season. What do you make of the Bengals, and if they are going to be any different than a team that just missed the postseason a year ago?
Well, the defense was bad last year, as we know. And I think that the Al Golden hire was about his ability to develop players. We saw it with the first Bengals stint, but also Notre Dame, right? His ability to just develop players. You're hoping that some of the younger guys on defense, he develops those players into being special players, which is what you need, right? Because think about it, you're paying a left tackle makes a lot of money, a quarterback, and 2 wide receivers. So you have to find value in younger players in other positions. I think they looked at Joe Marino last year and just thought the defense, the young guys just didn't get any better. So they're hoping that Al Golden can get the young players to play at a higher level. If you add that in with Hendrickson hopefully coming back, you have a defense that's worthy of winning games. Look, with the way the Bengals offense is, Average is all you need. The Chiefs just need average. Average on defense. Just don't. We shouldn't lose games 45-44. You know what I mean? Like just be good enough to let us win if we score 30 points. But the issues on Cincinnati continue to be the same. Defense and offensive line. All right, look, the offense. How about this? Joe Burrow has been blitzed at the lowest rate of any QB the last 4 years, but has been hit within 2.5 seconds of the snap at the highest rate.
Whoa.
And the offensive line has not been developed in Cincinnati. It's a huge problem. When you look at the resources that they put into that position, it's not been the most resources, but they have tried. They drafted Jackson Carman in the second round, and we'll pull up right here in 2021. That did not hit. Cordell Volston, he's fine, but it didn't hit. Mims last year, they're hoping that he becomes a guy, and then Fairchild. But you look at the makeup right now, Orlando Brown is fine. You have a rookie, more Volston at left guard, a free agent in Ted Karras, a free agent in Lucas, and Mims. Like, you might have two guys start the offensive line that were drafted. Look at the best lines in the NFL. They're not all guys that drafted, but they're 3, they're 4, they're 5. And the Bengals have a deficiency there, which doesn't allow their offense, I think, to function at the highest level it can function. It's a good offense, a great offense. Burrow was great last season, but it can actually be better. It can be better with an offensive line that blocks. So I'm very curious to see if a defense takes a step up a little bit, what that does to Joe Burrow and the offense. The offensive line plays a little bit better, what it does to Joe Burrow and the offense. Because if all those things are clicking or better, the Bengals, I'm a Chiefs fan, Dave, like they're the one, their team that scares me.
Yeah.
They don't care about Kansas City at all. They've beaten Kansas City in the postseason. So,
and they beat Buffalo a couple of times in the postseason too.
Yeah. So I would, if they can get there, they're legitimate AFC contenders. But we gotta be better on defense. We gotta be better on offensive line, and we gotta stay healthy. I don't know if I like paying 2 wide receivers. It's fine, I think, in the end. But they have a lot of money at the top of their offensive roster. They have enough depth, and can the offensive line play well?
Let me give you a couple examples in history that come right top of mind to me, and that is the Bears when they won the Super Bowl in '85 with a dominant defense and Buddy Ryan, and the offense just don't screw it up, right? And then the Ravens when they won it in the Ray Lewis, Ed Reed era, and his offense just don't screw it up. I wonder inside those locker rooms like you've been, if you've got a dominant unit and you're looking across at the other half going, hey, guys, just don't screw this up. Does that ever get to be acrimonious? Like, are the Bengals offense looking at those guys like, hey, man, help us out because we have as good an offense as there is right now in the game of football?
I mean, I think privately, yes, but I will say this about the mindset. So, offensively, and I 2014 Giants, 2015 Giants, we were really good on offense. We're top 10 offense. Our defense was like historically bad. Worst defense, I think, in Giants history. It was atrocious. We lost the game 52-49. It feels impossible to lose a game that way. But our job on offense is to score points, right? And when the defense allows a touchdown, you just put your helmet on and you go try to score points. That's our job. Score as many points as possible. Every drive we try to score, whether our defense is good or bad. Defense, I think, needs offense to play well. It's an emotional position, okay? It's a tough position. You're often put at disadvantage just by the rules in the NFL. And when your offense gives you points, you tend to play a little bit better. It's why we see a lot of times great defense or above average with bad offense. At the start of games, typically good. It's good. Then you get tired. You get worn down. You're on the field too much. You look up at the scoreboard, you're like, I played my ass off. It's 7-3. And you just get a little bit, you feel a certain type of way. It happens all the time, right? Defenses eventually crumble in that situation. So I think for defensive guys, they need their counterparts, the offense, to play better to help them emotionally prop them up. Or yeah, it'd be great if the defense got to stop all the time. But my job on offense is to score every single play, every single drive. So our mentality is always like that no matter what. Score, score, score. Now, again, do you want to lose 52-49? No. But just keep scoring. That's our job. So that kind of thing, I hope that answers your question about like the mentality of both sides of the ball.
I love that. That's the inside the locker room stuff that a lot of people are not privy to. Let's keep talking about the AFC North. That is next here on the GM Shuffle.
You're listening to the GM Shuffle, presented by DraftKings and VSiN.
We continue the GM Shuffle. Dave Ross and Geoff Schwartz here as we break down every single team in the AFC North. We've been going division to division until we get through every single team in the NFL here, Geoff. And you look at, quote-unquote, the bottom half of the AFC North. We talked a little bit about it off the top of the show with the Pittsburgh Steelers, and your point of they've kind of gone all in. It feels like maybe potentially for just 1 year with Aaron Rodgers. Rodgers says this is his last year. He's retiring after this season. They also made an interesting acquisition here when you go out and you get a Jalen Ramsey and you get a Jonnu Smith coming over in that Dolphins trade. You move away Minkah Fitzpatrick, something you and I talked about last week. When you see this now, can it work year one with all these changing parts, not just the quarterback, but tight end, corner, you name it? You move on from George Pickens. He's in Dallas. Like, can you rework this thing to really make those pushing of the chips into the center of the table worthwhile?
I mean, you can. It can work. When you do with veterans like this, they know how to play football, so it happens a little bit faster than putting young guys together very quickly. But my question comes back to, again, like, how talented is this team and how quickly can they put it all together? So we know defense, right? Like, I love the Derek Harmon draft pick, Oregon guy. He's going to be fantastic. Defense is a little bit older, right? They're switching out Minkah Fitzpatrick, who I think if you read between the lines, they think he was the sort of the wart on the defense last season. You replace him with Ramsey, an older cornerback. And I go back to this, I say this all the time, right? Like, why were the Dolphins so willing to trade Ramsey? If he's that good still, why would they trade him? Okay, so just keep that in the back of your mind. They added Slay off a Super Bowl, who's still good, but again, an older defense, right? If you look at the guy the year that drafted, 2011, 2017, Slay was drafted in 17, 8, somewhere around there. Like, it's an older defense, okay? And that's fine. But just acknowledging that. You have some young pieces that you like, Joey Porter, right? And Patrick Queen, but an older linebacker. I mean, they're fine, right? The defense will be what the defense is. It's offensively. How much does Aaron Rodgers have left? And how much can you get out of him? So I think Rodgers is not as bad as people want him to be. I think he was fine last season, playing a bad situation. The offense line in Pittsburgh, there's upside there. I like Frazier. McCormick played well last year. Fatano was back from injury. Jones has got to keep developing. Isaac was fine at left guard. If that group is solidified, give Rodgers time. You have DK, you have Robert Woods, you have Austin, you have Freiermuth, you have the pieces there to be an okay offense. And okay with that defense might be good enough to win a lot of football games. I don't like the offensive coordinator. I don't like Arthur Smith. I don't think there's a long track record of success. He had 1 year in Tennessee when he was fantastic, just sort of hit running in the ball there with Tannehill and Henry. The run game in Pittsburgh, I like Jalen Warren. Is he a number one guy? I don't know. They drafted Caleb Johnson from Iowa. Yep. He might be the number one guy. He's a tough, hard, physical runner. So if it all comes together, 10 wins, probably doable, right? But if an injury here and there, the offense starts slow, the offensive line doesn't develop, then it's like 7 wins, 8 wins. Their total's 8.5. Total's 8.5 wins. I mean, Vegas thinks they're not going to be 500 this season.
Geoff, here's the interesting thing. I'm glad you brought up Caleb Johnson here, the third round back out of Iowa, to go with Warren there. Now that you moved on, obviously with Najee Harris, he's with the Chargers this year. The bigger acquisition, I know on paper it's DK Metcalf, but the Jonnu Smith, Jonnu, by the way, said he was surprised he didn't finish out his career down there in South Beach. He had a great year last year for the Fish. You mentioned Arthur Smith. Is this going to be, because I don't think of Arthur Smith in big play down the field wide receiving. I think tight end. I think stuff out of the backfield. I think dual running backs. Is that what this offense is going to look like? Kind of pedestrian Aaron Rodgers?
Well, I mean, the best OCs are able to adapt, right? And they put a ton of 13 last season personnel. They're going to have Jonas within Freiermuth to do that. But again, is that explosive enough offense? I think the thought is if my defense plays well, we can run the offense we want because we don't have to score a ton of points. But there are going to be shootout games. Can you do that? I have a DK Metcalf question for you. You follow the sport like I do. He's played 6 seasons now. Is he as good as we think he is?
He's Geoff. He's one of those guys that pops when he makes a play, the physical specimen that he is. And I think a lot of people get caught up in that and they go, wow, the athleticism, the jump ball. He's so physical. Corners can't handle him. But does he do it enough for your liking on a play in, play out basis? Does he take plays off? These are those dirty little conversations that players know about inside those locker rooms of like, can I get in his head and make him take himself out of a game? Like, I don't ever see that from a guy like CD Lamb. Let's just throw that out there, right? I don't see that happening. But I wonder with DK, if you can actually get in his head a little bit and all of a sudden he's punching you getting 15-yard penalties, and he's not the dominant play in, play out receiver that you see from a Jamar Chase, that you see from CD Lamb, from some of these other guys that kind of do it with their play in and play out.
Yeah. The reason I ask is like, if you're looking for, like a signature DK Metcalf moment, I think for all these other guys that we have signature moments, his signature moment is him chasing down Buda Baker from behind.
Yes. Yes.
Like, it's not an actual, his all pro season was the COVID year. I mean, that's a weird year in general.
Yes.
And so I think it's fair to sort of be like, I mean, I'm looking at his numbers right now. So he has yet to finish. I'm looking in the top 15 in receiving yards. In the last year he did it was the 2000 season, the weird COVID year. He finished 7th in receiving yards. Like, it's great hits, some misses. And I just think that they view him as like this, not savior of the offense, but like different than what they're getting from Pickens. I feel like it's sort of the same guy. You're just going to get like great games, the bad games. Yep. If he doesn't run a big route tree, he's not a guy that's going to do a ton of different routes and whatnot. So he can be great with Rodgers' ability to throw the ball deep. Maybe there's a good mix there, a good connection. So I think there's a lot of questions about Pittsburgh. I don't like how conservative they play as well. Like in games, I tend to fade those type of teams. Like they just, they to win games, kicking field goals. It's insane to me, but it works, and they're going to keep doing it. It just seems like that's a crazy way to play football. But so it's a long-winded way to say, good. I think the best case scenario, 10 wins. The worst case, it implodes and you get 7, something like that.
Yep. Well, I think you're spot on. I'll say this too. You mentioned Arthur Smith. The reason why he lost his job in the ATL, part of it is how frustrated people were with the offense. And if you think that frustration doesn't carry over to DK Metcalf, potentially, if they get conservative and keep throwing the tight ends and keep running the football and kicking field goals, yeah, I could see DK Metcalf having an episode over there like we used to see in the Odell Beckham Jr. days when he got in a fight with the net. Let's get to the Browns a little bit. And look, we've talked a lot about a really bad football team, you and I, since the draft in April. And look, I get it. It's Shedeur Sanders. That's where the conversation always seems to begin with this football team. A guy who was drafted, the 6th round. And we don't even know if he's going to be the 3rd string quarterback, if he's even going to beat out Dylan Gabriel to be 2nd string, potentially behind Joe Flacco and or Kenny Pickett. You can't carry 4 quarterbacks, I don't think, in this day and age of a 53-man active roster. Geoff, what are the Browns doing? And I trust Kevin Stefanski, but I wonder if this was one of those deals where they said, Kevin, you got to draft Shedeur here, even though we already gave you Gabriel, because he's too good of a value at where we're drafting. What do you think the Browns are trying to do at the most important position?
If I told you that they drafted Sanders in the 2nd round and Gabriel in the 5th round, I know it was 3rd and 5th, but just go with me here. If they just reordered that, right? If they just reordered the way they drafted the running backs, wouldn't you feel like, oh yeah, it's a pretty good draft, but they just drafted them in a weird order. It's just like, again, if they would have taken Mason Graham and then gone with Shedeur Sanders and then the linebacker and then Dylan Gabriel, and then Judkins, you'd be like, oh, okay, like that makes sense, but it just didn't go that way. And so they drafted Gabriel ahead of Sanders. I've said this all along. Here's the way the quarterback battle is going to happen in Cleveland. You ready?
Yep.
Joe Flacco and Kenny Pickett are having one competition for the starting quarterback. The guy who loses is out. And then they keep Gabriel and Sanders, and those guys are the backups. Now, who wins the backup job? I think for now it's Gabriel because he's going to get the reps ahead of Sanders. Because how do you justify drafting Gabriel in the 3rd round and then have Sanders take the reps ahead of him? It's only 3 preseason games. There's not a lot of reps to go around in training camp. And Gabriel's not going to be bad enough to be demoted. I'm just telling you, he's just not going to be bad enough to be demoted. And at some point this season, maybe after game 3, they're like, you know what? This Flacco thing is not working. Same as the Colts had last season. It's not working. Let's play the young guys now. And maybe Gabriel has the first shot. Maybe Sanders has the first shot. But I think both Gabriel and Sanders will play this season as a starting quarterback. Flacco will not. And you think about the Browns it's not a bad team. If they just had a competent quarterback, they could contend for the playoffs. It's not a bad roster. They have a good coaching staff. It's just the quarterback situation just isn't great.
And by the way, we remember just 2 years ago to Deshaun Watson when he had his injuries, they literally called Joe Flacco from his home off the couch, and they went to the postseason. I mean, he did take them to the postseason. Do you think that's what Stefanski's looking for? Or do you think, like I go, well, what are you getting with Flacco at this stage that you couldn't get from Kenny Pickett? Or do you think they go, no, I know it works with Flacco. I don't care how old he is. Yeah. He knows how to run my system.
I think it's more about just trust in the offense. And we saw what Flacco did there a couple of years ago. I don't expect that to happen again this season. But Kenny Pickett is what he is. I mean, you're just hoping, I think, they hit lightning in a bottle with him. But to me, it's all about how quickly they get to the young guys. I just can't imagine those guys don't play much this season because Flacco is what he is. Pickett's on his, third team? Didn't look great in Philly last year when he got an opportunity to start and whatnot. So I think those are just warm bodies till these young guys can play.
Super Bowl champion Joe Flacco, Super Bowl champion Kenny Pickett right now battling for the number 1 spot here as the starting quarterback for the Cleveland Browns. When we come back, Geoff, very interesting article that came out here on the Worldwide Leader. I want to get your thoughts on it. They're going through the top 10 running backs in the NFL. So again, I saw a couple names on the list that I was a little bit surprised by. I wonder if you were surprised by them and really where is the value in the running back position. We'll get to that next here on the GM Show.
You're listening to the GM Shuffle, presented by DraftKings and VSiN.
We are back on the GM Shuffle. Dave Ross and Geoff Schwartz here on DraftKings Sportsbook. The crown is yours. And Geoff, we saw our friends over there at the Worldwide Leader, ESPN, did put out a top 10 list of running backs going into this season. Now, again, we got 32 teams out there. And you look at the list here, the top 10, you got to make some tough cuts. I understand that. But I don't think there's any pushback on Saquon Barkley. You saw what happened last year with the Eagles winning the Super Bowl. And certainly the king, Derrick Henry, and what he was able to do with the Ravens last year. Is there a demarcation line top 2, 3 and beyond for you when you look at a list like this?
Well, I don't know, man. I mean, I guess in like tier 1, like OG running backs, you probably put Barkley and Henry in here. Maybe Henry is 1. But you telling me like Jamar Gibbs is not as good as those 2 guys who are sitting 3 in this list? I don't know, man. I mean, I think Gibbs is up there. That feels like the line of demarcation for me. Obviously, if McCaffrey's healthy, maybe he's up there in tier 1 as well. So, the list obviously is Barkley 1, Henry 2, Gibbs 3. And then I think there's a line of demarcation based off of last season. But again, if McCaffrey's healthy, I think he's very much up there. The thing I find most interesting about these rankings that ESPN does is it has highest ranking and lowest ranking, right? So, for example, Jahmyr Gibbs is ranked as high as 2, but also as low as 9.
Whoa.
Okay. McCaffrey was ranked as high as 3, as low as unranked. Like so to me, the low rankings I find more interesting than the high rankings. We know the running backs typically are going to be around where they are, I think, right? Like, but again, Bijan Robinson being unranked, McCaffrey being unranked feels like a mistake.
Well, Bijan, by the way, on this list is 4th in front of McCaffrey there. And Josh Jacobs comes in at 6. Now, again, I'm just going on what we saw last year, obviously, and I think what we're trying to be predictive for this year, whether it's in fantasy or gambling as a team perspective as a whole. Well, like Josh Jacobs had a great year last year in Green Bay. And to me, felt like a guy that could be an every down back. I know we don't want to do this now with 17-week seasons. We're always looking for complementary players, so you don't have to have that workload. But it feels like a guy that doesn't need to come off the field. Jahmyr Gibbs, we know you've got David Montgomery when he's healthy as well. But I think Gibbs wouldn't need to come off the field if they didn't have a guy that was able to be a 1-2 there for him. I'm a little bit surprised at, like, is Bijan worthy of being a top 5 back? Look, again, kind of like we talked about DK Metcalf. Sometimes the talent pops and it looks spectacular. But, Geoff, is he already as dynamic a running back in your eyes to warrant a top 5 grade in the NFL?
I think so. So here's some numbers as well. This is from the article I'm taking. Robinson entered the league with considerable expectations, has largely met them. He's one of 3 players in NFL history to produce 2,400 rushing yards and 100 receptions in a player's first 2 seasons. Joining Edgerrin James and LaDainian Tomlinson. He had 365 touches last season. Like, I think it's more than just the actual running, right? It's his ability to get in space as a pass catcher to create mismatches that I think has him so high. As a pure runner, yeah, Josh Jacobs is probably a better runner in between the tackles. What's interesting too about these lists, and of course, stats matter, film matters, but also the wow factor, right? Like, he makes wow plays. Josh Jacobs, he does, but it looks different, right? Like, there's a visual part to this where, visually speaking, Josh Jacobs is more of a grinder, I'd say. Bijan, there's more like, oh, okay. Wow, that's offensive lineman. Josh Jacobs does wonders for us. But that matters to these discussions, right? Like, how visually pleasing is it to watch some of these guys run?
Very well said. By the way, Jonathan Taylor is still in the top 10 on this list. We saw James Cook, great year he had, certainly the Buffalo Bills. But I think my issue might be at 9 and 10. When I look at some of the older running backs in this league, not named Saquon Barkley and the King, Derrick Henry at the top of the list. And that would be Joe Mixon and Alvin Kamara down there in New Orleans. Are they still, in your opinion, top 10 running backs in the NFL? I know they know where they're supposed to be. And I always talk about blitz pickup. You know this as an offensive lineman. You can't just be a good running back and good out of the backfield. You got to know your responsibilities. Is that a trust factor for those two guys? And can they still carry it like they did maybe 5-6 years ago?
So Mixon was ranked as high as 5 by an executive.
Wow.
Kamara was 7. I mean, look, they're putting here Mixon's the only player in the NFL with at least 1,300 scrimmage yards and 9 touchdowns each of the past 4 seasons. That feels a very baseball stat. I mean, I'm sure they could find someone with 1,300 yards and 8 touchdowns. Does that really change them as a player, right? His 94.6 scrimmage yards per game last year trails only Arian Foster and DeAndre Hopkins in Texans history. That doesn't matter for this list. It's a padded stat. Yeah, Alvin Kamara, bad first pitch, by the way. Did you see it the other day? He threw a first pitch in Chicago. Yeah, he threw a second one. Yeah, I've never seen it before. He doesn't feel like he's a top 10 running back to me. The honorable mention is like Bucky Irving to me. That guy is he's going to be good. I mean, if he was 10, would you feel differently about that? So I think they look at, and here's some of the comments for Kamara. Look at his offensive line last year, how hurt their offensive line was in New Orleans, and kind of give him credit for that, which is certainly fair. But these lists to me, once you get past a certain number, it's just like your flavor of ice cream you like. Like, I like Bucky Irving a lot. Maybe it's a little Oregon biased, but like, I don't know, like, does it really matter if he's 9 or 11 or 10 or 12? I don't think so.
What about with these younger, like a big crop of rookie running backs coming into the league? A couple of Ohio State guys drafted the second round, of course. Talk about Hampton, and he's going to be going to the Chargers, and maybe that's why they moved on from J.K. Dobbins there. He's in Denver now. And then the Broncos came back with a high pick in the second round as well. So, of course, we know about Genty out here in the desert as a top 10 pick. What about this rookie crop of running back? Could any of those guys, in your eyes, possibly crack into that top 10 as early after year number 1?
Yeah. Well, I think Genty's going to be good in the NFL. The offensive line question is the one I have. I love Omar in Hampton. I think he's going to get a ton of carries in Los Angeles with that offensive line. I have him a rookie year ticket already. To me, he's a guy. He's gonna crush it. I think he's gonna crush it there. And the running back position we see all the time. We talk about the Steelers. Like Caleb Johnson could come in and play well early on. There's a lot of opportunities for these young guys. But Hampton, to me, with that offensive line, what they want to do offensively, he's going to be really good as a rookie.
Yep, and I'm looking forward to seeing what these rookie crop of running backs can do. And it does feel like because of Saquon's success, because of Derrick Henry's success, for the older running backs, I feel like the position is valued again, which is kind of nice to see. So I feel like for a couple of years, everybody felt like they were just interchangeable, run them in and run them out of town and go get fresh legs here. I hope that conversation, they've turned that a little bit in the last couple of years. We were breaking down the AFC North earlier in the program. And I want to give you some of these odds here, Geoff, before we say goodbye for this edition. Obviously, Baltimore is the betting favorite to win this division at -140. Cincinnati is +230 to win this division. Pittsburgh got shorter after Aaron Rodgers did, in fact, sign, down to 5-1. Remember, this was about 12, 13-1 a year ago with Russell Wilson. Now they're down to 5-1 with Aaron Rodgers. Cleveland has gone the other way now. They're 30-1 to win this division. So I don't think there's any visions of grandeur there. But out of those price points, is it to you, Ravens, Bengals, and then the Steelers would be a nice story, but it really is about the top two that the odds boards that you see on your odds board there?
I just think they're better. And look, we can break down division many different ways, but typically one of them is who has the best quarterback and then who has the second best quarterback and third best and fourth best. And right now that's how it stacks up, right? We have Lamar, then you have Joe Burrow, then you have Aaron Rodgers, and you have whatever the Browns are going to do. There's a question about the Bengals defense as of right now. Part of these markets, Dave, is they will move each and every week. So you can probably get better numbers on all these teams at some point. Like if the Ravens lose to Buffalo week 1, you take the Ravens then. They'll be like +100, right? You get better numbers time. So I would do it that way. Baltimore, Bengals division +160. I even think Baltimore-Pittsburgh division at +2, exact 1-2 finish, +275. Could be worth a little bit of a nibble as well. The Browns team scoring is 325 points, which is like an absurdly low number. And that's absurdly low for a reason. I don't think they're going to score a lot of points this season. I kind of look at some of those low numbers and think to myself, like, yeah, I'll play the under. Like they're low for a reason. So for example, the Giants last year, 273. Bears had 310 with Caleb Williams. And that's a low number. We're not at 258 last season. So to get even to 300 would be a big improvement. So I think Browns like under points, something I look at as well.
Very quickly here in the last 90 seconds or so that we have, Geoff, when you look at the coaches in this division, right? So John Harbaugh is a made guy. He's won a Super Bowl. Yeah. Mike Tomlin's a made guy. He's won a Super Bowl. Who do you think's under the most pressure out of the four coaches here? Because Stefanski's won a couple Coach of the Year awards. I can't imagine they'd move on if it really went south down there in Cleveland this year. But which coach do you think's under the most pressure this year?
Zach Taylor. If they don't make the playoffs this year, I think he's gone. I don't know what the it doesn't matter how. I just think how many years are you going to go with? You're going to go 2 years. I think it's Zach Taylor. I mean, there was already talk about Zach Taylor being on the hot seat last season. I don't think they can go not make the playoffs again and him keep his job for whatever reason. They just can't do it.
Could you say they weren't. Zach Taylor, could you say, Geoff, but my offense is great, and I was brought here to be an offensive guru, and that's what I've done?
I mean, they've gone backwards, right? They won the division in 21-22. They finished 4th. They finished 3rd. You can't finish 3rd in the division, not make the playoffs, and keep your job, in my opinion.
Fascinating. And for a guy that's been to a Super Bowl and Zach Taylor, so close to winning it, the Rams won it. But yet, still, it could very well be if it really went south in Cincinnati this year. Certainly that could be the case. Geoff, always appreciate the conversation, my friend, each and every day. I can't believe it. We're getting so close. Next week, by the way, we are break down the AFC East. High hopes in Orchard Park. That is for sure for those Buffalo Bills. We'll do all that next Monday when you join us right here on the GM Shuffle.